Hello everyone, it's Phil here. Welcome to another video. This video is quite rushed and raw, and there will be more of them because the idea is to benchmark as many cards as possible, update my charts and make some progress. So we're looking at the TNT2 range of cards. I've got a standard TNT, I've got two TNT Pros, and then I've got the TNT2 M64. You want to avoid these, and I will talk about these cards in a bit more detail. This one is from Diamond, the Viper V770. This one is from MSI, the MS8806. And a German card from Elsa, the Elsa Eraser 3 Pro. So what can you expect in this video? Right at the end, all the benchmarks. I will talk about all the 50 benchmark results. So it's PowerPoint by death, so to speak. 50 slides of me analyzing the charts. Quite boring, but look, it is what it is. You can just go to my web link down below in the description if you just want to look at the charts. I update them whenever I review a new card. I'll look at what driver I used and why. We'll talk about the image quality. We'll talk about what these cards are known for. This is not a video where I just read stuff from Wikipedia or Vogon's wiki. They've done a good job at explaining all the technical stuff, and I'll put the links down in the description. I will give you my take. What are the TNT2 cards good for? What makes them stand out? What features do they have that might interest you? Yeah, because every card has their good sides and the bad sides, so that's what I'm focusing on. And at the end, I might give you an overall impression on what I think about it. Okay, so enough talking from me. So while the benchmark runs in the background, and that is on our TNT2 Pro, captured directly through the VGA output, I just want to talk a little bit about the highlights of this card. Now, a lot of the information you can find on excellent websites, for example, the Vogon's wiki or on Wikipedia, so I really don't want to get too much into the technical stuff. I just want to focus on the highlights that are important. I'll put the links to these websites down in the description if you want to read up a little bit further. But what stands out with the TNT2 is really the compatibility with 32-bit color mode. So that was something it had. It had a leg up on the 3DFX Voodoo 3, for example. The Voodoo 3, while it only supported 16-bit, it had this 22-bit color mode, but there was a bit of controversy going on. The screenshot tools couldn't capture that, so in reality what you would get on the screen was actually better than what you would see in these screenshots. So that was one thing the TNT2 has going for it. It can do 16-bit as well as 32-bit colors. The other benefit is that it can support high resolution textures, and I've got a screenshot here in a game where we can compare how textures look on the TNT2 compared to the 3DFX Voodoo 3, and you can see that it's a lot sharper and more detailed on the TNT2. What else is there to talk? We can talk about clock speeds. There are three versions, the TNT2, the Pro and the Ultra. The TNT runs at a core clock of 125 and a memory clock of 150. The TNT2 Pro runs at a core clock of 143 and a memory clock of 166. And the TNT2 Ultra runs at a core clock of 150 and a memory clock of 183. There were also other cards that were clocked even higher, like enthusiast cards. The TNT2 is the last chip that supports Windows 3.1, but the driver is a little bit buggy, and personally I haven't done anything with Windows 3.1. It really doesn't interest me that much, so I focus on Windows 98. There's an issue with 8-bit palletized textures, for example Final Fantasy VII, so if you want to play that game, don't get a TNT2. You're looking at getting a GeForce to be compatible with that. And what else is there to talk about? Visual quality. Look, there's a lot of talk about the color depth and so on. I've got a comparison of a couple of games rendered in 16-bit and 32-bit colors, and I don't know, maybe I'm not looking at the right scene, I find it really hard to spot a difference. So maybe that wasn't such a big deal back in the day. I don't know. And something that you guys might not know is the 3DFX Voodoo 2 was my last graphics card before I took a break of around 3 to 4 years from computing. So I didn't do anything with computers. So I stopped with the 3DFX Voodoo 2 and I picked it up with a Radeon 9800. So there's a huge gap of cards and experiences that I missed out. So that's part of this project, of my benchmarking project. Basically discovering some of the old cards and checking them out for myself, because there are lots of stuff on the internet, but I like to verify and test stuff myself and find my own opinion. What else can we talk about? I'm just looking on this website. Yes, there's the TNT2 model 64 or M64. Avoid this card like a plague. It's got half the memory width. What does that mean? Imagine you've got 4 checkouts at a supermarket and suddenly you only have 2. That means longer lines. It takes longer to check out your stuff, and that's basically what the M64 is. Compared to the Ultra, it is roughly half the speed. A little bit faster, but roughly half the speed. And so when you see benchmarks and the TNT2 looks fine and you're getting an M64, your experience will not be as good. The problem with the M64 is that there are so many out there. I mean, if you go on eBay and you're looking for Nvidia Riva TNT2, oh my god, you will just find M64 cards. So you really have to look a bit carefully. So what I did, I identified models of popular companies that released a TNT2 card, and I searched for those, and that made it a little bit easier. Okay, so let's have a look at the driver options. So on your Windows 98 computer, right click on the desktop and select properties, and then under settings you can choose your color bit rate, the color depth, and also the resolution. And if you click advanced, it gives you access to some more options. So the driver I'm using is the version 29.42. That's the one I installed. And the card I'm using is the TNT Pro, specifically the Elsa Eraser 3 Pro. There are some other options you can configure, but really that's the main button. But let's have a look at some of the other options. So here you can choose what output you want to use. You've got some color correction going on. And this is all standard Windows stuff, so pretty much every card has these selections. But all the magic happens in here when you click on additional properties. So you've got settings for direct 3D. Note the absence of VSync control. It doesn't have it. Under OpenGL there's a bit more going on. The VSync control is here. It's always disabled. Direct 3D, unfortunately, VSync is enabled by default. So if you're benchmarking, you want to disable it, and we have a look at that later. So we can set here the map detail quality. We can also enable a logo to be displayed whenever you play a direct 3D game. That's enable the fog table emulation. That is enabled by default. Under OpenGL, we can tweak all sorts of other settings. Nothing really that we need to change. Overlay controls, that is likely for the SVD output that this card has. And then here, that might be quite interesting if you enable the quick tweak icons. You get a little icon down here. You can right click and change some things here. Just makes it a little bit easier to access. Overclocking, there are a couple of ways of doing this. You can use the official overclocking tool that's built into the driver but not enabled. You need to run the CoolBits registry setting. So this will set a registry key. So just double click on that. Press yes. Okay. And if you now go to your, we should be able to go through here. Right click, display properties, advanced, TNT2 Pro, additional properties. We should now have a few more settings here under more direct 3D. We can now change vertical synchronization, set that to always off, apply and press OK. And what else have we got? We've got now clock frequencies where we can tune the clocks for the core, for the graphics chip, but also the memory. I'm not gonna do that at the moment. So I'm just gonna set all that back to default. That was auto select. Okay. And I'll show you another way of doing this, and that is using power strip. I've got that installed. I just gotta find a power strip. There you go. And a couple of versions, and the one that works really well. Have I got a shortcut? Okay, I'll put a note in the video of what version it is. Let's press close, and you get a little icon here, and you right click, performance profiles, configure, and it shows you the clock speeds of your card. And up here you just tick this box, disable vertical sync for direct 3D. By default, this might actually be ticked, and then you can't do anything up here, so you need to untick this and disable vertical synchronization. And that's really all you need to do. Press apply and then press OK. Okay, we're just about to look at the benchmarks, but because the benchmarking session is 6 minutes long and me just talking about them, I'd rather do my conclusion summary now. So what do I think about the TNT cards? Like I mentioned earlier, I took a break from computing when these cards were out, and my last card was a 3DFX Voodoo 2. And looking at these cards now, I really like the TNT2, and there's a big chance, I'm just like looking how I was thinking back then as a kid, there's a big chance that I would have gone for a TNT2 instead of a 3DFX Voodoo 3, simply because it's a really good package with the 16 and the 32-bit color. It's a fairly simple card, affordable, it works, the drivers are good, the game compatibility is good, so I'm really pleased with these cards. Definitely not a bad choice going for TNT2. In terms of performance, going forward you will see that the TNT2, in terms of frame rates, you're better off playing older games. It's not really powerful enough for later games or even older games at very high resolutions. So, but that's the whole point of this project. Me reviewing card after card after card and getting a picture of where should you go, which card should you get depending on what game and what setting. The other good thing is the texture resolution, sharp textures. That's something I really like. Bit of a downside with the VSync control that you need to modify your registry or use power strip. ATI, for example, has all that stuff built in. With the 3DFX cards, you do get an official tool that you need to run, and then you get an option to overclock and change the VSync controls. But all in all, very happy. Bit annoying to find proper TNT2 cards because you always run them across the M64 OEM cards, and they're garbage. You really want to avoid them. Okay, that's it. So brace yourself and enjoy 53 slides of PowerPoint where I'm going to analyze the benchmarks of this card. Okay, I hope you're ready. 53 pages of benchmark results. This is the Windows 98 graphics benchmark project I talked about in my previous video. I'll put the address down in the YouTube video description, but also on every slide is the link just in case you find this document somewhere else. So let's have a look at 3D Mark 99. We're getting just over 8,000 for the TNT2 Ultra, and then here are the other scores. So we can see that the TNT2 M64 a little bit over half the speed of the Ultra. Let's look at 2000, 3800, 3500, 3100, and then around 2200. So pretty much like in the 3D Mark 99, roughly half the speed of the Ultra. Okay, 3D Mark 2001, what have we got here? Same principle follows, half the speed of the Ultra for the M64, and all the other cards, you can see it on the screen. Okay, let's start some game benchmarks. So Forsaken is no problem for any of these cards. only on the TNT M64 we're running out of steam. If we go to the 1280 by 1024 resolution at 1600 by 1200, you really want to have the Ultra card to stay comfortably over 60 frames per second. But really at that resolution you might want to look at another card. What else we got? Turok 2, very playable at this resolution at 1024 by 768. The TNT M64 already runs a little bit out of steam, and once we switch to 32-bit color mode, it's game over for the TNT M64. So here you want to have the standard TNT2 at the least, if not the Pro or the Ultra. And as we continue ramping up resolution, it just gets worse. Okay, Serious Sam, 640 by 480, they're all playable. The TNT2 M64 struggles a little bit, and then as we increase resolution, we can see that this card is not really suitable for this game. As we ramp up the color depth and the resolution, it just gets worse until we hit 1600 by 1200, and with the Ultra gets a pretty poor performance of 10 frames per second. So really this game is for another graphics card. Expandable, quite playable at 640 by 480, but once again you start increasing resolution and it runs out of steam. Even the Ultra is not really able to push past 60 FPS at the 1024 by 768, and it gets worse as you increase resolution and color depth. Okay, Earth 2150 at 640 by 480, it's playable on all the cards. Once you go 1024 by 768, you really want to have one of the proper TNT2 cards, not the M64. But go beyond that and you can see all the cards are starting to struggle. And once we go to 1600 by 1200, all cards will give you a bit of a slideshow, so you're better off with a faster card. Descent 3, not too bad at 640 by 480, 1024 by 768. All the proper TNT cards are still playable, but at 1280 by 1024, frame rate starts to suffer and it just gets worse at the 1600 by 1200 resolution. Unreal Tournament, really good frames across the board. Even at 1024 by 768, still playable. Once you get to 1280 by 1024, you struggle a little bit, and I was not able to run 1600 by 1200. It would default back to the 640 by 480 resolution. So this was the highest resolution that would work on the TNT2. I did try the Voodoo 3 in glide mode, and that displayed 1600 by 1200 fine. So we will see how that develops with more cards in the future. What else have we got? The MDK2 frame rate is fantastic, but once it got to 1024 by 768, there's a big jump. The M64 is not able to keep up. The other cards are still playable. Once you switch to 32-bit color mode, all the cards suffer a little bit with the frame rate, and it just gets worse. So again, another game where you want to have a more powerful graphics card. GL Quake runs fine at 640 by 480, runs fine at 1024 by 768 on all the proper TNT2 cards. Just the M64 can't really keep up anymore. And switching to 32-bit color mode, the impact is not that massive, but we are talking more than 10 frames per second, so definitely something you will notice. Or the Pro and the Ultra are still playable. The TNT2 struggles a little bit, and then as you go up in resolution, it just gets worse. At 1600 by 1200, we're getting only 26 frames with the TNT2 Ultra. Quake 2, let's have a look. Playable at 640 by 480. The Ultra and the Pro still very playable at 1024 by 768. Once we switch into 32-bit colors, we can see once again a difference of around 10 frames. These two cards are still playable, and at 1280 by 960, all the cards start to struggle. And the last one, Quake 3 Arena, that's quite a modern game, quite demanding. Even at 640 by 480, the TNT2 M64 barely gets above the 60 frames, and then as soon as you crank up the resolution, all the cards start to struggle until you get to the 1600 by 1200, where even the Ultra only achieves 13 frames per second.